Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani calls on the Taliban to stop violence as they have no legitimacy for the ongoing violence. In his Nurvaz festive message, Ghani asked the Taliban to accept each other. Meanwhile, the Taliban said they are making every effort for the success of the ongoing peace process. However, they claim to have killed 8 government soldiers in a retaliatory attack in the Ghazni province. In Myanmar, a peaceful march by medical professionals in the second biggest city kicked off another day of protest around the country against last month's coup. Security forces shot dead at least one person at a rally elsewhere. More than 270 people have been killed since the military toppled the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. In Syria, at least 7 people have been killed and 10 wounded in an attack by Damascus-backed forces on a hospital in Idlib. In a tweet, the Turkish Defense Ministry said a child was among those killed. The Saudi-led coalition says it has launched airstrikes on Houthis in Yemen's northern city of Marib. In a statement, the coalition said it has destroyed Houthi military equipment and inflicted heavy losses. The move comes after a Houthi drone strike set a Riyadh oil refinery ablaze on Friday. India has reported this year's highest daily deaths from COVID-19 and infections. The Indian Health Ministry says 197 people have died and nearly 44,000 people tested positive in a day. In Pakistan, over 3,600 people have tested positive and 44 died overnight as the fatalities tally topped 13,800. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.7 million lives and infected more than 122 million people so far. And in tennis, world number 7 Alexander Zverev has defeated Stefanos Tsitsipas in straight sets in the final to win the Mexican Open in Acapulco. The 23-year-old German recovered from an uncertain start to work his way back into the contest. The victory gives Zverev his 14th ATP title. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani calls on the Taliban to stop the violence as they have no legitimacy for the ongoing violence. In his Nowruz festival message, Ghani asked the Taliban to accept each other. The president added they can stand the country on its feet, but it needs unity. Meanwhile, in a statement, the Taliban said they are making every effort for the success of the ongoing peace process. The group said it has fulfilled all its responsibilities in accordance with the Doha Agreement. However, the Taliban claimed to have killed 8 government soldiers in a retaliatory attack in the Ghazni province. And in the Jalalabad city of Nangarhar province, a civilian was killed and another injured in 2 separate roadside blasts. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast so far. In Myanmar, a peaceful march by medical professionals in the second biggest city kicked off another day of protest around the country against last month's coup. Security forces shot dead at least one person at a rally elsewhere. More than 270 people have been killed since the military toppled the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. This report has more.
With public protests getting ever more dangerous, anti-coup demonstrators in Myanmar's Mandalay acted early to minimize the risk of confrontation with security forces. About 100 doctors, nurses, medical students, and pharmacists lined up on the city's main road to proclaim their opposition to the February 1st coup. The city has been a major center of opposition to the takeover, but in recent weeks, the number of protesters have fallen off in the face of lethal use of force by police and soldiers firing live ammunition into crowds. The army takeover reversed the slow progress towards democracy, which began when Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party won a 2015 election after 5 decades of military rule. The coup has prompted sanctions from the international community and calls to release elected leaders.
In Syria, at least 7 people are killed, including a child, in an artillery attack by government forces on a hospital in northeast Idlib. Turkey's defense ministry says the shelling in the town of Al-Atrab wounded 10 others. The town falls within Idlib's de-escalation zone. The area has been the subject of multiple ceasefire deals, which have frequently been violated by the Syrian government. The Saudi-led coalition says it has launched airstrikes on Houthis in Yemen's northern city of Marib. The move comes after a drone strike by Yemeni rebels set a Riyadh oil refinery ablaze on Friday. In a statement, the coalition said it has destroyed Houthi military equipment and inflicted heavy losses. It said the strikes halted a tank and infantry offensive by the Houthis in Marib. A Yemeni government official said the coalition had launched at least 20 strikes. He added at least 70 fighters and 22 government soldiers were killed and dozens injured in clashes during the past 48 hours. Over 1 million people have been displaced in the region since the renewed fighting erupted. Iraq says the U.S.-led coalition forces have destroyed 85 ISIS targets in 133 strikes over the past 10 days. The defense ministry said the strikes hit 61 shelters and 24 caves used by the terrorists. The ministry added the coalition forces also neutralized a number of ISIS militants during the operations. Iraq declared victory over the terror group by reclaiming all of its territories in 2017. But ISIS still maintains sleeper cells in large areas of the country and periodically launches strikes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will annex parts of the occupied West Bank only if U.S. President Joe Biden supports it. In an interview, Netanyahu said he awaits Biden's approval, but he still intends to do it. During his election campaign, Biden had said he vehemently opposes any annexation plans. In July last year, Netanyahu announced an annexation plan under an agreement with his coalition partner, Benny Gantz. However, the Israeli premier failed to implement the plan amid differences with partners and the U.S. former administration. Tens of thousands of Israelis hit the streets of Jerusalem for the 39th consecutive week in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The protesters were calling for his resignation just 3 days ahead of the 4th general elections in 2 years. Some 20,000 people gathered outside the Prime Minister's official residence for the central protest. This marked the largest anti-Netanyahu protest since the weekly demonstrations began last July. Pressure has mounted in the election run-up on Netanyahu as he faces charges of bribery and fraud, all of which he denies. He is also facing severe public anger over his government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
We are here to protest against Netanyahu and his corrupted government. This is our last chance before the election. We want everyone to come and vote to change. Vote to exchange this government. 3 days from now, there will be the election, and we would like to see a change.
In Thailand's capital of Bangkok, more than 30 protesters and security personnel have been injured during anti-government protests. An emergency medical center says police used water cannon, tear gas, and rubber bullets to disperse the protesters. Protesters have been calling for the release of their leaders and for the reform of the monarchy. Police said they have arrested 20 people for breaking public gathering laws and insulting the monarchy. They said violence originated from the protesters' side and police have to defend the law and protect national treasures. This comes after Parliament failed to pass a bill to rewrite the military-backed constitution, which is one of the protesters' main demands. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, voting has begun for the presidential election that is boycotted by the main opposition party. More than 2.5 million voters have registered to take part in the election. President Denis Sassou Nguesso is widely expected to extend his 36-year rule and secure his fourth term against the six opponents. According to Monitor Net blogs, there is an internet blackout across the country. United Nations and European Union observers were not invited to monitor the election, and the Interior Ministry refused to allow the Catholic Church's 1,100 observers to take part. Results are expected to be published within 4 days of voting. Mediterranean countries on the front line of Europe's migration crisis have called for more solidarity from EU governments. The Interior and Migration Ministers of Greece, Italy, Spain, Cyprus, and Malta held a summit of Med5 in Athens. They said the pact on migration in its current form does not provide sufficient reassurances to the frontline member states. In a joint statement, they said 5 states cannot take all the pressure from the rest of the European Union. The ministers called for a centrally managed European returns mechanism and relocation of asylum seekers among all member states. EU's top migration official, Margaritas Schinas, said it is time for European geography to reconcile with European solidarity.
We are here at the summit of the 5 southern European Mediterranean countries, who are forced by geography to carry a disproportionately large burden of the refugee crisis for all of Europe. We are at the point now where we must reconcile European geography with European solidarity.
Bulgarian Prime Minister Boyko Borisov has told Russia to stop spying in its country. This comes a day after Bulgarian prosecutors said they had charged 6 people for working as spies for Moscow. They said the alleged spies passed classified information about Bulgaria, NATO, and the EU to the Russian embassy in Sofia. Prime Minister Borisov said it could again be necessary to declare Russian diplomats as unwanted. During a trip to the northeastern city of Silistra, Borisov said Sofia always demonstrated friendship. However, he added the Euro-Atlantic partnership cannot be jeopardized. Meanwhile, the Russian embassy in Sofia termed the allegations another attempt to demonize Russia. Brazil has reported nearly 2,500 COVID-19 fatalities in a day, taking its country's death toll to almost 293,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.7 million lives and infected more than 122 million people so far. More on the pandemic in this report.
Anti-lockdown protests and concerns over vaccine safety have overwhelmed the governments as countries continue to register record deaths and cases. Peru's official death toll has crossed the grim milestone of 50,000 deaths, but health experts fear the true tally could be closer to 100,000. Chile also set a new daily record for COVID-19 cases, leaving its hospitals on the verge of collapse. Meanwhile, the Brazilian government has been in talks with the U.S. about potentially importing excess COVID-19 vaccines, and following the concerns, Colombia's President Ivan Duque has offered to receive the AstraZeneca vaccine to demonstrate its safety.
I say very clearly that if the fact that me receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine as President of the Republic will bring peace of mind about that vaccine, if you Health Minister Fernando Ruiz think it is useful, then I will do it when you tell me. Because that is the message for all Colombians, that all the vaccines which have been acquired are safe vaccines.
Over in Europe, Denmark has reported 2 cases of hospital staff with blood clots and cerebral hemorrhage after receiving the AstraZeneca. In Greece, the health experts say new admissions of patients to hospitals have increased to more than 500 a day as the country prepares to ease restrictions. The number of patients in French ICUs have also risen to this year's highest level, but anti-lockdown demonstrations continue in the region. In central London, police made 33 arrests after around 10,000 people gathered against restrictions. A similar demonstration in Germany turned violent as police deployed water cannons and used pepper spray to disperse crowds. But in Spain, a number of German tourists arrived in the island, providing a timely boost for one of the hardest-hit industries.
Wir sind unglaublich glücklich, heute die ersten We are extremely happy to be allowed to welcome approximately 220 guests today. Our occupancy rate is expected to increase in the coming days, and over Easter we expect a 75% occupancy rate. Most of our customers come from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland.
In Africa, Congo's leading presidential opposition candidate, Guy Brice Parfait Kolelas, has been hospitalized for COVID-19 ahead of today's election. Meanwhile, Kenya's plans to offer free vaccines to all diplomats in the country has been met with criticism by local medics.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, COVID-19 has claimed another 44 lives overnight, pushing the death toll to 13,843. The health ministry says over 3,600 people tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours.
The ministry said caseload has reached nearly 627,000, while around 582,000 have recovered. It said the number of active cases has jumped to over 31,000, with nearly 3,000 patients in critical condition. President Arif Alwi has urged the nation to get vaccinated and be aware of skeptics. In a tweet, Alwi said inoculation is a must as it increases the survival rate and is 100% effective in most cases. Meanwhile, world leaders and diplomats have sent out wellness wishes to Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan. The Prime Minister and First Lady tested positive for COVID-19 on Saturday. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President of Maldives Ibrahim Mohammed Solih wished for Khan's speedy recovery. Palestinian ambassador, Australia's High Commissioner, and German envoy also sent their prayers. The U.S. Embassy and Chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Abdullah Abdullah, also hope that Khan recovers soon.
India's health ministry has warned that a huge gathering of devotees for a Hindu festival can send coronavirus cases surging. Today, the country reported this year's highest daily COVID-19 deaths and infections. The health ministry said 197 people died and nearly 44,000 people tested positive overnight. It said up to 40 people are contracting the virus daily around the site of the Mahakumbh. The festival began this month and peaks in April near the Ganges in Uttarakhand. Organizers have said more than 150 million visitors are expected. The ministry said the state's daily coronavirus testing is not enough for the expected number of pilgrims. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for a global fight against racism. In a tweet, the UN chief termed racism as a deeply rooted global evil. Guterres said racism transcends generations and contaminates societies. The UN chief said racism perpetuates inequality, oppression, and marginalization. Guterres called on the international community to work together to eradicate racism so that all may live with peace, dignity, and opportunity. On the occasion of the International Day of Forests, Pakistan has called for urgent action to stop deforestation. Addressing a virtual event, Pakistan's UN envoy, Munir Akram, said forests benefit livelihoods and the environment. He called on the UN to help member states in developing integrated and holistic reforestation plans. To counter the crisis, Pakistan has launched a campaign to plant 10 billion trees over the next 3 years. Amin Aslam, special aide to Prime Minister Imran Khan, says the project has created 85,000 jobs despite the pandemic. He said the project is not just about timber, but about the well-being of people. The Ministry of Climate said Pakistan's worldwide acclaimed projects will help address climate change as well as biodiversity issues. In Australia, heavy rains along the country's east coast have brought the worst flooding in half a century. The government has declared a natural disaster in large swaths of New South Wales. The floods have resulted in the closure of several major roads, forcing thousands of Australians to evacuate their houses. No deaths have been reported yet. However, emergency services say hundreds of houses have been damaged. Rains have been swamping various communities since Thursday, but parts of the East Coast tipped into a major crisis yesterday as a large dam overflowed, aiding to swollen rivers and causing flash flooding. In Iceland, a volcano near the capital Reykjavik provides a spectacle as lava flows from a fissure in the earth. The 500 to 750 meters long fissure at the eruption site is spewing lava fountains up to 100 meters high. Authorities said the eruption posed no immediate danger to people or critical infrastructure. The volcano erupted on Friday after thousands of small earthquakes in recent weeks. The last eruption on the Reykjavik Peninsula was some 900 years ago. Iceland has also recorded more than 40,000 earthquakes in the past 3 weeks. A meteor lit up the sky over eastern Cuba as it streaked over and crashed, causing an explosion. The National Seismological Service says the phenomenon was witnessed in the towns of Moa, Sagajutanamo, and Maisi. They said that there are no reports of any damage or injury. Earlier this month, a meteor also lit up the sky over parts of Britain like a fireball. The video shows the space rock burning brightly as it streaks through the sky and falls into the ground in southwestern England. International Space Station crew ISS-65 have taken their final pre-launch exams at Star City in the Moscow region. The crew of the Soyuz MS-18 spacecraft includes 2 Russian cosmonauts and a NASA astronaut. Similarly, 2 Russian cosmonauts and NASA astronaut Anne McClain will be their backup. The space flight is scheduled for the 9th of April from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. According to the Russian Space Agency, the planned flight's duration will be 191 days. American astronaut McClain says she is ecstatic to join the team.
I'm very lucky to be the backup crew. Got assigned with a very experienced crew members, and I think training for this flight after already having flown once has been very different. It's been very good working with these professionals, and so very happy to be on the backup.
The International Monetary Fund has pointed to emerging signs of a stronger global economic recovery, but it has warned the significant risks remain, including the emergence of coronavirus mutations. IMF's Deputy Managing Director Jeffrey Okamoto said the fund will update its earlier forecast of 5.5% global growth in April. In a speech to the China Development Forum, Okamoto said China had already recovered to pre-pandemic growth levels. He raised concerns of widening gap between advanced economies and emerging markets outside China. Okamoto added the overall outlook remained exceptionally uncertain as it is unclear how long the pandemic will last. The oil giant Saudi Aramco has announced that its profits fell sharply last year as lockdowns around the world curbed demand for oil. Earnings in 2020 fell by nearly 45% compared with 2019. But Saudi Aramco still made a profit of $49 billion and said shareholders will receive dividends totaling $75 billion. Over the course of last year, the price of oil fell by a fifth as countries halted travel. Moreover, shutting down of industries and curbs to many day-to-day activities reduced the demand for energy and fuel. The oil price has recovered slightly since December as the vaccine rollout got underway. Major Gulf stock markets have declined as the absence of fresh stimuli dulled investor sentiment. Qatari bourses led the losses, dripping over 0.5%, with banking stocks declining the most. Saudi Arabia's benchmark index slipped marginally, weighed down by a fall in Saudi basic industries. In Dubai, the main share index dipped less than 0.5%, with the largest lender Emirates, NBD, and Damek Properties retreating. The Abu Dhabi index edged fractionally under the flat line after First Abu Dhabi Bank slid nearly 0.5%. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.